we'll get started, and as people jump in, they jump in. But at least for those of you that were on time, we could get started in the meantime. As in the past sessions, we'll leave this completely open-ended. Not going to waste anybody's time if there's nothing to show, but I'll be glad to go through anything at all that people want to see live related to any of the application functionality questions on how to do things, at least from a best practice perspective, or just general questions about how things work in the application that we could move forward. I am taping this just in case anything good comes out of it, and we could post it on YouTube so people can see it. And I just want to, I guess, ask that you guys can see my screen.
Yeah.
Okay. So why don't we leave it open-ended? I'm in the demo environment. Please, again, I don't have a set agenda for this call. The only update I have is the API release 1.1 doc will be out before end of week. And there is a enhancement to the overall system that we're attempting to get rolled out before the end of the week also. And we'll send out notes on both of those things once they're fully tested and implemented, so that people are aware of the functionality enhancements or API improvements based on what's happened in the last 2 weeks. So that's just the general announcement, but obviously more will come out in writing on Facebook in the next 2 days. So with that, anybody on the phone interested in just how to do something, questions, comments, concerns, issues, ideas, fire away.
Okay, Miss, this is Tori. I have a question.
Sure.
My specialty is group travel. I mainly do cruises. And I wonder if there is a way inside the group that we create, if we can automatically populate the pricing for if the clients that book the inside versus the ocean view versus the balcony. If that if there maybe could be like a drop down that we can add it to automatically add that price in, or do we have to do it every time?
Well, I mean, the pricing, I do have a group in here. I'm just looking because I don't remember the name of it. The pricing components are not something at this point in the application that are preloaded.
Okay.
So, and that's, based on the sort of the general construct. So what we've done for, cruise groups or package vacation groups that are contracts, I mean, really the process is the same and it's pretty much, you can go and create a new group profile that would obviously look like this. And then you could create new reservations from within this group. And there's a couple things that some people may not know about. So the first is, if you put in the reservation number, I mean, this is just a made up one, obviously. This could be a cruise or a package. And your group res is 123 ABC. And let's say you go and create a regular reservation and have that same group reservation number. If you go back to your group and click on this link all trips number, it will actually automatically pull in everything with that reservation number and link it to the group automatically. For instance, if maybe you forgot to do it when you set up the group originally. In regards to creating multiple cabins or rates or things like this, really unfortunately the best or the fastest way to do it is when you're in a reservation, you could store a reservation copy, and let's say this is an ocean view, you could create a store reservation copy and then go to a new trip for somebody and you could paste that saved reservation in and then go change their name. So if I'm here, just to give you an example, and I store this reservation, and let's say this is obviously here, transfer hotel. Let's make this a cruise. why don't I could even start from scratch, just so you could see a cruise. So if I add a new reservation, cruise, Carnival, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right now there's no components underneath. If I hit save right then and there, the system's smart enough to know that you picked a cruise, and it's going to build in your air, transfer, cruise, transfer, air insurance. Now let's say you're not booking their air, you could either delete that and hit save, or what generally I find myself doing is just saying do not show on invoice. And the reason I generally just don't show on invoices, because I'm not booking their air, doesn't mean that at some point they may want to give me their air information, and I could put it in here, let's say if I'm doing their transfers. So if you delete it, it will hide it completely from the screen, where if you just hide it from the invoice, it will still keep the box, it will just keep it blank. So if you do a cruise and let's say it's the Glory and you fill in all this information and it's $500 or $5,000 and you put in all this information and you save it, when you're done, you could store that reservation copy. You could go to your next person, let's say, who's booking the same cruise, and you can either post the most recent or post the saved. And then all you have to do is refresh from profile these people's names so that it's a new person tied to a new reservation. So on a contracted group, we can knock out like 10 or 20 or 30 rooms really quick, because all we're doing is generally copy, paste, and maybe we change on a cruise. You don't even have to change the dates. All you're changing is maybe their cabin number and the price. On a contracted group, generally, like on a room, we're changing their dates and their price and the room category. But copy and paste is at this point the fastest way to do, contracted groups that for cruise or for package. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, there's no way at this point where you could preload contract pricing. However, I will say what we do a lot on, at least what I do on our groups is, on our Jackson family group, let me go back to that. You can, let's say you get a group contract, you could attach that group contract, whether it's a cruise or anything, and keep all the versions of that stored here. This way, if you have to, let's say if you're sharing, if anybody else needs information and you're out of the office, they can always go to your group and pull up what your group contract is or what your any documents that you have related to that group. And you'll see on every single element in this system, whether it's a person, a group, a trip, a reservation, you'll always see the ability to attach files or add a reminder. So I think the goal of many of us is to get paperless, and obviously this was created so you're basically attaching the paper to the right place where you want it, rather than just store it on your hard drive and they'll never know where it is when you need it, or obviously not be able to give other people access to it.
Yeah.
So, any other questions on those groups? And then obviously you could report on those groups via the report function. And you've got the 3 group reports that are canned right now for processing. If you select any of those, then you could do a report just on that group.
Hey Mitch, this is Christine from Beach Farm. On the group report, I think we found that it wasn't bringing in any PSA information or second client information, just primary. How are you using those reports?
Yeah, it brings over all of the people. That's a given. So the one thing you may not be seeing it, and let me just expand this data range to make sure I'm getting all the data. So when I show it on screen, see, it's showing both individuals that are in the room. It's
right,
not,
but it's not showing. Say if you wanted to use that report done to travel impressions to confirm their date of birth and so forth. I mean, are you using these reports?
yeah, I mean, I'm not sending over TSA information to wholesalers. The only time I'm sending that over is if you're doing group air, right? If you're doing group land, none of that is needed.
Right.
I just want to also show one thing because we've gotten this request a lot, but as of right now, none of the 3CAN reports are showing the TSA information for air purposes. So just to get, the other thing is, a lot of people have said it's not showing all the people because when you see the spreadsheet, you only see my name and Anna was in the same box. If you maximize your window, it's actually in there. It's just hidden when it opens.
Okay.
So I know a lot of people said, oh, I only see the first name. It's the same thing you see on the screen. All the names are in there. But yes, as of right this second, there is no TSA information. And I'll add, I know it's on our list already for enhancements, which would be to add yet another report for groups for customer information.
Okay.
Actually, hold on. I think this solved it. Give me 1 second. I'll be honest and say we don't do a lot of group air, so I haven't run this report, but I think, no, that's just the regular customer information, not, yep, so we would need to do the TSA information.
Okay.
All right, we are using that report though for mailings.
Yeah.
So like if, it's a great way to see a group who you got to mail documents to. So I'll add that to the list of 196 items for enhancements. But I mean, that should be something, if that's a common request for group air, it's something we should be able to do pretty quickly.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions or demonstration items?
Chris, that's not my super nosy, and I'm still trying to work my way through. I tried to figure out, and I did it for one of my clients, but I couldn't figure out how to, because I'm switching from another software system, so I'm trying to update the payments that I've already received for some of my group clients. And I'm missing the process somewhere, like somewhere along I'm adding the payment, but when I get to the screen, to my dashboard, I'm not seeing it. And I'll go through the process. But
You're not seeing it show up in your final payments due. You're not.
correct. Yeah, on my final, it'll one of my clients I was able to do that too, but the other one I guess I forgot the process or.
Yeah, I mean, in order for it to show up in your final payments due, you need a couple things. So the first is, obviously, you need the reservation information loaded. It can't just be the trip. It actually has to be a reservation because that's what's actually is due. The next thing is the status of this reservation has to be it has to be either deposited, really deposited is the right one, or awaiting deposit. Both of those will show up in your final payment due bucket. If it shows paid in full, or it shows void, canceled, or anything else, or has no status, it's not going to show up on your dashboard. So generally, as long as you have a date, a status of either awaiting deposit or deposited, and a reservation in there with an amount due, it will show up here. So more than likely, you're missing one of those components, and that's why that reservation's not showing up.
Okay.
If you just have a trip record like this without a reservation, it won't show up because there's no, really all of the data is down at this trip level. So it needs to know how much your reservation was and other information in order for it to show up. If you go and look at that data and you can't figure it out, shoot me an email and we could have Alex or Nikita look at it to help you troubleshoot it, since we don't have access to your database.
Okay.
But generally, in every single case we've gotten these over the months, it's been one of those two reasons. Either your status was not deposited or awaiting deposited, or your information didn't have a balance due, or didn't have a final payment date in the record. Right. Even if your status, for instance, is, it's smart enough to know if it's canceled or expired or something like that, not to show it on your dashboard.
Yeah.
All right. Other questions?
I went through the process of putting the actual payment in, but it's not affecting.
Well, if you, so in this case, for instance, if you're adding a payment, if your status was deposited and you add a payment, it will automatically move it to deposited. So if you're awaiting deposit, let's say, and you go and post that deposit, it will be smart enough to say, if you put in an initial payment, so you go and add a payment, let's say, and you say it's an initial, when you process this and save it, it'll be smart enough to change your status to be deposited.
I'm not sure if it's making a deposit, but it's not affecting the balance. So if their trip was 500 and they paid me 50, it's not saying that their balance is 450. It's just saying that they still owe, like it's just full balance is still there.
All right. Well, if you look on this, the balance, the total is 4638. We've paid 4,500, so we owe 138. If I go, and the way to add a new payment would be to go here. Let's say I add $38. Let's call it a other payment. I want to associate it down here if I'm linking it and pushing it. If it's a cruise, obviously there's no linkage. Once you save that 38 or save and close, you'll see now this other payment for $38 showed up. It's adjusted my total paid amount and obviously doesn't touch my trip total and gives me a new balance due. So it's possible you put it in and maybe didn't save it.
Oh, okay.
Because it needs to be saved in order for it to show up in my payments.
Got it.
And I just uploaded a new version of Firefox today, and I've been getting this think tank the entire day. So the system's fast today. My browser's just super slow. There we go. Any other questions?
Is there any way we can, I see the option to hide from invoices? Is there any way we can hide the reservation number for the invoice?
To hide a reservation number from an invoice.
For instance, the cruises, they give you a group cruise booking number, then they have their individual. I would much rather their individual booking number be on their...
Well, you have complete control. So if you want, you can put whatever number you want on this field. That's what's going to show up on the invoice.
Oh, okay.
So if you don't want to give them a group number and just an individual, you could put just that number there, and you could put the notes, here, and that doesn't show up anywhere. Group res number equals this. That's not going to show up on the invoice at all, but you'll have it in there in case you need it.
Correct.
This is what shows up. Only what's in this field shows up on the invoice. All right. Other questions?
Mitch, this is Christine again. Yesterday I ran the Duke checker for the first time.
Yep.
We have a space to have left it that long. Can you just kind of go through that? It took me a while only because I was being very cautious, and I think a lot of what our dupes seem to be is that when stuff is coming in via API and we're getting a web request, which is just the initial contact, and then they send in a reservation, the system isn't recognizing that those people already have a profile, and I understand that is something, an enhancement that's out there in the future, but I guess I just want to be sure that I did it all the right way. So,
yeah, I mean, and agree. This is one of the, I mean, I have dupes in there that are non-API related. Obviously, with the API in version 1, we'll have more dupes than we normally would, and hopefully we'll get rid of them with, the next enhancement, or a future. But the way I've been doing dupe checking, very honestly, I actually open 2 windows. So I will keep my application open, and you can choose which things you want to check on. I've generally been keeping it simple and just doing last name, first name, and not worrying about everything else from a comparison perspective.
okay.
My guess is in this, I actually have one in here, so it will show you here obviously which that there's 2 profiles that may match, and these are probably dupes. I've been, rather than clicking through and then having to go back, which I find is really annoying, I've been opening new windows each time. So I'll open this person in a window, and I'll open the other person in a window, and then I'll look and see which one I want to keep.
Well, I guess it's not deleting anything, is it? It's actually merging the 2, and my understanding is it does.
Well, it
retains notes and so forth.
Right. So here's the 2, right, and here's just some of the information. So I can merge 33 into 34, or 34 into 33. Right. It's
It doesn't matter which way you go. It's going to retain.
No, it does matter. Whichever one you choose is the one that's going to live, basically.
Right.
Right. So if I want to merge them now, when I search for Weldon, only one William Weldon's going to show up, and it's going to be the number 34, and it's going to have the linkage where the other one didn't.
Right. But that trip is still going to be there. So it was, because one didn't have a trip.
Right. So when I go to the trip page, that trip is still there.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. So, I mean, that's what I've been doing. On some of these, I'll be honest and say we have trips tied to both. And that's where I'm actually opening up and making the determination which one do I want to keep.
Yeah.
And until we have a better API process, this is a downfall of the time savings of an API. But, even just for those without it, it's a huge time saver to be able to dedupe these. Because when we went through our database, I mean, we found I still have hundreds in there that I just do, during downtime to try to clean things up.
Yeah. Well, I found many that were due to our upload from client base.
Yeah, and we've even had some since where we just didn't know that one client was actually worked on by 2 different agents at 2 different times, and we didn't even realize it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, where they were a wedding guest at one point for one agent, and then a client of ours for a different agent.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, the duping is very cool, and something that at this point only the admins have. At some point we'll be rolling out a version for others, most likely to manage themselves. And as you pointed out, we need to figure out a better solution for the transactions coming in automatically.
Yeah.
So, all right, other questions or comments?
This is Rachel. I have a question. I'm sorry, go ahead. We're still very new to using this. So we were putting a cruise in, and it has the origin in the cruise section, and I assume that meant the port in which they were embarking. But it doesn't allow you to enter anything in it. What am I doing wrong?
Let's find out. News to me.
I'm thinking maybe it was something I should have customized and didn't.
I mean, if I enter, hold on, let me just go to a trip. All right, and I go to add a new reservation, and you're saying it's a cruise for Carnival, and I come down in which category?
The origin under ship.
It's a drop-down field, but I don't know why it would be. So I'll have them update on that master to just be a text field. I don't remember it being a drop-down, but I haven't done a cruise in a bit. If you need it right this second, you could obviously edit your fields and make that a text field instead of a drop-down. But I'll have Nikita make that a text field on everybody's system. Cruise. Yeah, I'll have him update that.
One other question. Last night we were chatting on Facebook, and you said that there was a way to allow us to have it indicate that clients do not want to receive email marketing.
You could add a custom field to do that.
Okay. So then, if I run a report with the client information, will that just be another column, or will it just take those people out?
Yeah, unfortunately, it won't interact with the reports today. So
Okay.
that's we added the based on the chat last night, the privacy function and the do not contact. We'll have to add into the reporting functionality.
Okay.
The other thing that that we messaged back and forth was fixed this morning.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep. Other things we could go through?
Okay, so just so I'm clear, we create a client. Groups again. Sorry, we create a client, and then we make a new reservation for them.
Yeah, the process generally is first you add a profile. The next step after you add a profile is generally I'm adding quick profiles for the other people in that room or cabin.
Right.
And giving them a relationship. Your next thing is giving them a trip. So these two people are doing something. You could link it to the group if you want. You could say what type of group it is or what type of status, etc. I'm saving that. And then the next step is you're adding a reservation. So in your case, it would be a cruise on Carnival. If you already had one copied, right from here you could paste.
Nick, it's Jennifer. Why do you have reservation.
Yes, that's why I'm sure that's why I'm getting confused.
Me too. Why isn't it just one thing with all the information in one?
Because a trip could have multiple reservations. So think of a trip as a manila envelope, right? You could have a trip with, I'll stick with the cruise example, a Carnival cruise cabin, a short trips shore itinerary, a Travel Guard insurance policy, and air booked through International Air Consolidator. Those would be 4 reservations tied to the same trip, and you may want to separate them all because you may get commissions from all 4 of the reservations, so you want to track each one of them separately. But you want to put them all part of the same trip because you want it all linked together, and when you go to generate an invoice, it will actually have all 4 things on your same invoice. On an easy package like I'm booking a trip to Iberostar, through Travel Impressions, yes, it's an extra step that takes all of like 2 minutes to do, because all you really do is gotta give it a name. That's really it. Everything else comes over from the reservations themselves. If it's if it's a downloaded one. If it's a manual one, you may have to put in your final payment date. Or other information. This stuff is all optional. You don't have to put any of this stuff in. You do need a status, obviously, if you want to track it for final payments. But that's, Jen, that's the reason why we have the second step.
Okay. I'm still confused about this. It was specific example that we were working on here.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. So, if somebody could go on mute.
What?
Sorry about that. I couldn't hear you. Somebody was really loud without putting it on mute.
I'm still confused with the trips and reservations. I have a family who is driving to Florida. They're going to Universal, spending the night, and then they're driving another day in the park, and then they're driving over to Port Canaveral, spending a night in a hotel, and then getting on a cruise ship. So I've got those 3 reservations, plus they've got Travel Guard. So it's 4 different reservation numbers, 4 different commissions that will be coming in. But when I try to put it in under one trip with the different components, it seems like it doesn't flow quite right.
Well, I mean, it's one trip, right? So let's just demonstrate that. So let's call it trip as Florida Drive, right? So I'm saving it. And I'm going to add my first reservation, which is, let's call it, let's call this Universal. Right, we don't have a link, so I'm going to put in it's $100 deposit. I'm going to add a hotel component. Right, you could type in all this information, and you give it it's $1,000 for the night, and your commission's $100. Right, and your check-in date is here, and you're staying 6 nights, something like that, right? And the reason you may want to do this is you're going to track that commission for Universal. So when I save it, well, it would come up to 100, right? And let's say I'm an agent and I only get paid 75%. Right, so that would be 1. But then you said you're staying at another place. So let's call this, you're staying at a Hilton. Port Canaveral.
Mhm.
Whatever. You get the gist.
PPM.
And I say that this is 1,500, and I'm getting 150, and it's one night from something like that. Now I can track the commissions on both of those separately. So when I get paid, I could put in the commission amounts, and if I wanted to, I could generate an invoice that's going to show both trips. Here's my first hotel reservation. Here's my second hotel reservation. All tied to one trip. And the reason, very honestly, we have them as separate, a lot of it has to do with commission, because if you put them in one trip, in one reservation, which you can do with multiple components, you just can't track your commission separately. So when the first commission comes in, you'll mark it paid, but you won't realize that you never got paid for the second. Somebody can put us back on mute. Did somebody just unmute? Hello? Did somebody just unmute? Yeah. Somebody has really bad static. If you just unmute it again, there's something I think wrong with the connection.
Mitch, I'd like to add to your comments too. If you're using DCRM to run the report to your payroll, it's absolutely imperative that you separate out those reservations.
Exactly. If you're not using it for payroll, it doesn't matter. If you're using it for payroll, you need to break them apart so you can track each individual commission and then the agent percentage for those commissions if you're multi-agent. It's the only way.
And using that report, it saves so much time.
Yeah, we've cut our payroll processing from what we did before to now in probably a third.
Yeah, I agree.
I could do a week of payroll for us in generally like 2 hours now, and we're hundreds of transactions.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yep. So that's why we do it. Again, if you're a one-person agency and you don't care about commission tracking in the system, you could build one reservation and just keep on adding components. Add a new hotel, add insurance. You could just keep on building it so it's one reservation. You just won't be able, all the commissions are bucketed together, and it would be very hard for you to track if you've been paid or not on each component. So that's why we designed it to separate it, because we know we have those, exactly that case you brought up, right? You have 4 reservations on a simple Florida fly and drive, or drive, stay, and cruise, right? On Europe FITs, we had one with 11 components last week. Between hotels, rail, rental cars, excursions, air, 11 components, each with its own commission. All right. Anybody else? Questions? Things we could help with? And again, the system's flexible enough. You could do, very honestly, any which way is going to work best for you to manage your business. What I'm demonstrating, very honestly, is just what works for us.
This is Crystal again. I have one more thing that I want to add to our, wish list that's 3 miles long. Would it be possible to have the system email you a daily agenda or a daily list of what I'll just do that day?
You mean basically a version of your dashboard?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something we had on the list originally, I'll be honest and say we pushed it down on the list from the standpoint of we wanted people, and again, you have to remember the history of this. We built this for us. We wanted our agents to log in every day and look and see what was going on. And if they got an email, they may not go in and look and actually see that, for instance, a news, you have the ability to use a lot of those alerts and announcements. So if you had a sale or you had something you wanted everyone to know, it would be a way to let people know without emailing them. But it's something we could put back on the list. It's on there. It's just, it keeps on getting pushed back because we wanted people to live in the system, not just get an email from it and potentially never log in.
Gotcha.
But so it, again, I realize that we intentionally delayed that, but if it's enough people that are interested in it, it's obviously something we could push forward. The other reason why we push back, and as of right now, this system has no outbound email functionality other than what's linked to your mail software. So it does not have a mail server tied to it. So it would be better served to do that if and when we built in web marketing integration, because then it would have its own mail server.
Okay.
All right, so that's the two components to it that the reason why it's been pushed back, but it 100% is on the list.
Awesome. Thank you.
You got it. And again, always post ideas on Facebook or email us if you have them, just so we're constantly going through and pulling things from there and adding to our list. So, other comments, questions, concerns? We'll probably do another one next week, assuming this release gets approved to go out. This will probably go out Friday if it does. It's got some minor functionality enhancements, and then the API enhancement. We're just testing all this stuff now.
I do have one final question. On my website, I have, on all my cruises, I give my clients t-shirts, whether it's the family reunion cruise, it'll be Jackson family reunion. Is there a way I can add that to when I'm adding a profile and they're one of the reports so I can know I need 15 extra large and medium, and so I'm trying to get away from spreadsheet.
So the answer is yes and no. You can add custom fields to anything. So you can add a custom field to either their contact record or their reservation record, and it'll probably be on the reservation where you could add, very honestly, right in the notes field here, you can either put it there or add in a custom field.
Yeah, that's where I've been putting it in the notes.
The problem with that is it doesn't show up in the reports today. However, if you put it in your comments field, this comments field does show up in the report today for input on your group report. So if you put in your invoice comment field that you want 4 shirts, it would show up in your report. So it's another example of that. We've probably gotten 5 in the last week of people that have added custom fields that want them to show up in reports where it doesn't show up today.
Oh, okay.
So this shows up though. There are certain fields. So for instance, if you're doing a cruise, depending on what you're filling in already, you may be able to reuse one of the fields on the cruise already. Obviously you could put it in there, but you could potentially, depending on how much of this you're filling out, you could put it in any of these fields. All right. So, but yes, it would be very much better if you had the ability to select which fields you wanted to report on in a report. So that's the functionality we've requested. All right. Anything else?
think our agents have questions about the API, but quite honestly, I don't know enough to even ask a sensible question, so I think I'll save it all for next time. I'll gather their input, maybe get some clarification on a few things. The two people seem to be a little, I think they're getting the hang of it now, but
Yep. So I mean, we could schedule that. Probably makes sense to do another call around the API next week once the new release comes out.
yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay. All right. If there's nothing else, thanks for the time. I'll post this on YouTube just so people have it if they're interested, and we'll probably do another call middle of next week assuming the new release comes out.
Thanks, Mitch.
Thank you.
Thank you.